Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of college basketball. The field narrows. The bracket is officially down to 16. But who can keep surviving and moving on one step closer to the Final Four? Without further ado, let's run it. We are officially to the Sweet 16. It's been a crazy bracket thus far. It's been up and down for both of us in our predictions. Up and down for a lot of these teams. We've had some shock upsets thus far, but I will hand it over to you, Drew, to give us an update on where we stand in the rankings.
Yeah, how we doing? Game by game, round by round. So we're both doing pretty okay. We both wanted a benchmark of about 70% correct predictions. I think that's a pretty successful, anywhere from that 65 to 70% metric, a successful March. And right now we're both either in or slightly outside of that. Right now I'm currently sitting at 33 and 15, which is good for about 68%. You're two games behind that at 31 and 17, which is good for 64, 65% if you want to round up. But it was really that Sunday that messed us up because Saturday I was a Tyler Tanner shot away from going 8-0. I ended up going 7-1, and you were right behind me at 6-2. That Tyler Tanner shot would have also put you at 7-1, and we both went 3-5 on Sunday. So a bit of a hit there. We had a bit of a heater on Saturday. On Sunday, took a bit of a hit, but we're hoping to turn it around for the Sweet 16 round. Hopefully, get that 8-0 round.
That would be crazy. That would be super fun. And we've got some exciting matchups ahead of us
People
for
have done it
this.
before. It's
For
unlikely,
sure.
but
It is unlikely because now with as many really good teams as this field narrows, it's going to get harder to be like, oh, this is an obvious choice. You're going to go with that. But that's what makes it fun. That's what makes it, the Sweet 16 and getting down closer to the Final Four. We will start off in the East region with the first of two matchups here with the number one seed Duke, the number five seed St. John's. Duke had a little bit of a scare for a bit with TCU in the first half. They did end up coming out ahead 81 to 58. They really took over in the second half. And personally, I think a big part of that was the return of Patrick Ngungba. He was on a bit of a minutes restriction, but him coming back just kind of revitalized that team and that defense. He didn't come into the game until probably, midway or past in the first half. And you could tell Duke just got, a lot more confident as time went on with him. And then guys like Cam Boozer kind of picking up on the offensive end.
yeah, that's the thing. You say they had a bit of a scare. TCU hung around for like a half, maybe, but you look at the final score. Duke won by 23 points. It wasn't nearly as significant of a scare as it
No.
was in the first round against Siena. I think what we need to take what Duke is going to be fine, even if they start
Yeah.
a little bit slow, which they've done in both games. It's going to be okay, and they've gotten their way here. Obviously, they're fine.
Yeah. And on the other side, St. John's and Kansas were in a I don't
What a
even know if I want to
game!
call it a duel because
What a
like it was
game!
so ugly. It was so ugly for a lot of it, and then St. John's pulled out ahead, and you're like, all right, okay, finally someone made some shots. It's over. And then Kansas came storming back and made it a crazy close game, down tied with the final seconds remaining. And good old Darius Darling comes down the court, puts up a real nasty finger roll on the outside. That was not like an easy lay. It looked easy or easier in real time, and you saw the replay layup, and he put that up all the way from the outside there. So, great bucket for him for his one
Yeah.
and only bucket of the game
And
to
that's what
put
I
St.
wanted to
John's over.
say. Yeah, he was 0 for 4 from that point. The only basket he made as time expired. Even though it was sloppy, I think it was still a pretty good duel of the minds with Rick Pitino and Bill Self. And that's kind of what I was expecting, even though it didn't look nearly as pretty as we thought it was going to. But Kansas has had their struggles throughout the season. So has St. John's. And at that point, when you're in it and there's about a minute left and it's a close game, it's that real chess match, which I think made the matchup incredibly fun. And John's got the win at the horn.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I think it's going to be interesting to see going forward. Bill Self has made some kind of cryptic comments about his future coaching, especially with his health. He's had some health scares in these past couple of years during the season, so I think he has a lot of important things to think about with the season coming in to an end for the Jayhawks. But if this was it, what an incredible coaching career for him. He's obviously been one of the premier coaches in all of college basketball for a very long time now. But moving on to the actual Sweet 16 game itself. Duke versus St. John's, I think what it comes down to is everything that I've seen out of St. John's thus far. I don't know if I can trust their scoring. They put up 67 against Kansas. Now, albeit against a good Kansas defense. But in that game, both of their team's strengths was the defensive end, so it was bound to be kind of a low scoring, grind out slugfest. But they also had Bryce Hopkins hit like what, six threes? He's like a
He went kind of
32% three-point
bonkers.
shooter, but that only got him to 67. That's what makes me nervous. And you're not going to have that much more success on the inside against Duke with Cam Boozer and Ngangba if he's healthy, or if he's, back playing without a minutes restriction. I don't know. If I think given what Duke has been able to show with these slow starts and just kind of building as the game goes on, I don't know if St. John's can keep up with that as the game goes on. So Duke with the 6.5 point favorites in this one. I'm going to stick with the Blue Devils.
Yeah, and I had a feeling you would. But the St. John's team isn't a TCU. They certainly aren't a Siena. And with the way they've taken on teams like UConn throughout the regular season, I think they can definitely hang with Duke. The way Rick Pitino is going to have his guys ready and prepared, the moment is not too big. Pitino's been doing this for so long. March is where he's at his best. And yes, it is Duke, and John Shire is a very good coach so far, but he don't have the experience that old Rick does. Rick still has a few tricks up his sleeve. I actually like the Johnnies to move on. Give me an upset here.
Hey,
Listen,
we've already seen one seed fall.
unpredictable things are going to happen in March, and I understand people are like, "Oh, it's chalk madness." Not quite, not so fast.
No. We've already had a one seed fall, and obviously we'll get to that here soon. But yeah, sure, there was a fair amount of higher seeds winning in the first round, but like you have an 11 seed in the Sweet 16, you have a
Got a
12
nine
seed.
seed.
You've got a 9 seed. You had, a 12 seed like High Point make it to the round of 32 and put up an amazing fight. And we'll get to that one here in a bit too. No, I would not call this one as chalk madness. I would say last year was significantly more chalky than this one. And I was worried for a bit that this one was going to get to that point too. But moving on to the second game in this region, you have the 3 seed Michigan State against the 2 seed UConn Huskies. Michigan State looked pretty confident, pretty sound in their win over Louisville, 77-69. Overall, they continue to play the Izzo brand of basketball, play physical, play tough, just outwork and out discipline your team. And they've been able to do that this far. On the flip side, UCLA was fighting with UConn for about 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the game, but they lost steam. And I think what it came down to is everything that I saw was pointing towards Tyler Bilodeau coming back. He unfortunately did not come back, and I do think that was a huge difference maker for UCLA because they did not have their leading scorer and best 3-point shooter out there on the perimeter. And I think that could have made a significant difference when this game was real close there throughout the course of the second half, and maybe even stopping some of that UConn run.
Yeah, I think the great individual effort for UConn by Alex Caravan, leading scorer 27, lot of experience, wants to join that echelon of guys that have won 3 national championships, and UConn's still alive, so the dream is, you know, definitely still here. Um, did you mention Michigan State and Louisville yet? I kind of blanked there
I
for a
did.
second.
I mentioned that first, and then I came down to UConn and
I had
UCLA.
a, I had a feeling you did. Um, I definitely want to highlight some Michigan State Spartans there. Cohen Carr and Jeremy Fears Jr. both with double
Yeah.
doubles. The 16 assists from Jeremy Fears, back-to-back games with double-digit assists, very impressive. Trying to get all of his guys involved. And I think I kind of played my hand there because I'm going to jump right into the prediction of what I think. What we've seen from these two teams, each of these two rounds, is with UConn, it's been a tremendous individual effort. Terrace Reed in the first round, Alex Caravan in the second round. But for Michigan State, it's been a full team effort. You don't have just one guy that steps up and takes over a game. It has been the Izzo team brand Spartan ball, and that's why they're going to move on. Because if I'm taking the individual players, one guy takes over versus team effort, I'm taking the team effort every single time. Especially when you get into March, the best overall teams generally win. And I trust Izzo here. How can you not? But the coaching matchup, man, Danny Hurley and Tom Izzo, we're going to see a clash of heavyweights, and I'm
Yeah.
happy that it's gotten this far.
Welcome to the East region in a
Yeah,
nutshell. That's when this bracket came out. That's exactly what we were saying, and we've gotten that game after game after game. Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, I think The other big thing for UConn in that game was getting Braylon Mullins finally going. He was like 0 for his first 11 from three in the tournament, and then he finally got one to fall, and he ended up going 2 for 6 from three over the course of the game. So it's going to be big to try to keep him going because they need that outside threat, that outside shooting. Other than Caravan, obviously they got Caravan going. But yeah, I mean, when it comes down to it, it feels like UConn has not put together a full team game yet. And I gotta be honest, I think when it comes down to it, I think that UConn's got the pieces to compete with Michigan State in the paint. And I think they've got presence from the outside to be able to outshoot Michigan State if they could get the 3-point game going. I obviously have been a massive UConn hater throughout the course of this, but I think you get to this point, you start seeing UConn to hit their stride. I think I'm gonna go with the Huskies in this one.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm kind of
Interesting.
flipping the script there.
Yeah, you're definitely flipping the script. It's the other way around. I'm picking a Big Ten team. You're picking
And
a
I'm
Big
picking
East
a Big
team.
East team. It's
Yeah,
I don't
you,
know. There's
especially since you said 2 rounds ago, I'm going to bury the Big East. Yeah, clearly not. You're picking them to move on. Although, imagine
yeah,
if,
I didn't pick St. John's though.
imagine if we got a Johns UConn matchup in the Elite Eight. That
That would be crazy.
would be an
Round
electric
three.
factory. But speaking of electric factory, let's talk about this next matchup we got on, where the Midwest will go to war with itself.
The South region, where upsets are made. The ninth seed, Iowa Hawkeyes, against the 4 seed Nebraska Cornhuskers. We have the Big Ten in the Sweet 16, a perennial Great Plains matchup in the Midwest between Iowa and Nebraska. Um, the Iowa game was electric. Watching the end of that game,
How
just
fun was
seeing, I
that?
can't,
Both games were electric.
both of those games were. Yeah, I just want to start with Iowa because watching Florida decide to press that final possession, that initial pass inbounds to Sturts, I was so afraid that wasn't even going to get there. It hit him perfectly in stride. Fulgaris in the corner goes the ballsy route of stepping back to take the three because he was not originally standing at the 3-point line. He steps
No, he
back
was
and
running the baseline.
drains it. He
Yeah, and
drains it.
credit to Bennett Sturts for making the extra pass, which I did
Yeah.
not think he was going to do, by the
No,
way.
I thought it was going to be him head down to the basket, look for, foul hunting because that's what he did in the possession before that didn't work. So credit to him for switching it up. But yes, you talk about the Nebraska game as well. Vanderbilt, Nebraska, arguably the greatest college basketball atmosphere or NCAA tournament atmosphere that I have potentially watched on television. You could feel the energy in that arena almost every single play down the stretch. By the time that I was tuning into that game for like the final like third, oh my goodness, it was a battle. It was a dogfight. You had buckets back and forth, and then the final shot. Oh my Lord.
Yeah,
I
that
told you
we're going to
this.
be
I
talking
told you
about
this when
that
I
one.
called you. Yeah, when I called you afterwards, I audibly gasped when that ball
I
hit
did too.
backboard and rim. I went,
I did too. I was watching with a few buddies. I was out and I stood up for the final inbounds pass and it reminded me of a definite different shot that could have that could have spelled glory for one certain Butler University, the Gordon Hayward shot.
I
Um,
saw somebody else compare it to it as well.
that's what that reminded me of instantly. And
Yeah.
uh, you and I both picked Vanderbilt, so to be on the same side of it where that shot didn't fall, definitely brought back some flashbacks for me. However, still an exciting game on both ends, but I gotta ask
I'd
who you
also be
got,
I'd also be
man.
remiss. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that that is the second half-court buzzer beater
Oh,
that
right.
Tyler Tanner has had bounce out in the same season. That is heartbreaking for the kid.
Yeah, you gotta think one of those goes down, but predictions? Thoughts?
Predictions. This one is so tough because it's like I've seen both of these teams play a lot now.
Yeah,
And
I'm
quite
very
frankly,
curious.
like Iowa, I was very impressed with Iowa's performance against Florida because I did not think they were going to have, out of any team's front court, to be able to compete with Florida's, did not think it was going to be Iowa. But the thing that I think comes back to me in this one is Nebraska's defense. Not that Florida had a bad defense, but Nebraska's defense and their ball hounding abilities. I think that I'm going to trust the Cornhuskers, which is crazy for a team that literally had never won a tournament game ahead of this year to push themselves to the Elite Eight. There's something about like I don't feel great about picking against Ben McCollum because his success has been
He
undeniable.
just wins.
He just wins. But I gotta say, I feel like this essentially borderline Cinderella for Iowa has to collapse somewhere. And I believe in the magic of the Cornhuskers and the crowds that they have been bringing to every one of their games thus far. I have to believe that this is going to be a pro Nebraska crowd again, even with Iowa being the underdog and the lower seed, because of just how much it means to Nebraska right now. Not that it
You,
doesn't mean stuff to Iowa too, but I'm going with the
geez,
Cornhuskers.
you think so? I think both teams will travel pretty well, especially getting to this point. Um, but when I saw you also fix your hair, you look great, by the way. I just want to put that out there. You look
Thank you. I
fantastic.
appreciate it. I keep having
Um,
hair trying to fight its way to the front, so it's pissing me off.
which is ironic because this is arguably the shortest you've ever had your hair in the history of this podcast. So
Pretty much.
now, yeah, so now that you're having hair issues, interesting. Um, when you're like, I'm gonna trust the Cornhuskers, I'm like, uh-oh, we've picked against each other every single game.
We
That
we
trend's
we
gonna
going
continue.
opposite again.
Yeah, we're going opposite again.
Hey, we,
Um,
we spent so much time picking together between these first two rounds. It's about time that we start
we're
having
we're
some
back
different
to we're back to
opinions.
fighting. Yeah, I'm going with the Hawkeyes. The
Okay.
way that they have won has impressed me enough to where if you can take down the defending national champs, a team that is poised to make a run, they were poised to make another run, go back to back and
Yeah.
crush that dream. They earn my
We saw
respect.
how amazing they were. They looked in the first round. Never did I think that they were going to stumble as hard as they did. But credit to Iowa.
Here we go. They're gonna roll right on. Yes, Nebraska's defense is very, very good, but with the way that Ben McCollum has this team playing, his team success, the overall momentum, finding ways to get it done against superior opponents, which this should theoretically, like in the box, should be another superior opponent, but it's a rivalry game, and it's
Right now
on,
it's
and it's on the biggest stage. I think the playing field is completely even, and I
Yep,
like the Hawkeyes here.
that's what makes it so hard to pick. Right now, the line is Nebraska by 1.5, which is essentially a pick'em game, which
Yeah,
is
it
crazy for a
opened
Sweet
at
16.
Nebraska -2.5, and the line has
Sure.
moved towards the Hawkeyes. But we'll see what
Yes.
happens throughout the week. I don't even think this is the hardest game to pick in this round, though. I think it's the next one.
The next one is incredibly difficult because you've got two essentially very different teams. You have the 3 seed Illinois Fighting Illini against the 2 seed Houston Cougars. Illinois coming into this game obviously had their amazing win round one against Penn, but followed that up with a very convincing 21-point victory against VCU, who took it to North Carolina in the first round. So they may not have had as crazy of an offensive performance, but they certainly did it in a very convincing fashion with a 21-point victory. On the other side, you've got Houston completely dismantling A&M, which is quite frankly exactly what we thought was going to happen because neither of us trusted Buckyball and Texas A&M. So who's really surprised there? But that
Well, you
just
know what?
continues to show Houston has shown no
Lose,
signs of slipping right now.
yeah, losing to Buckyball, shout out to St. Mary's, that forces a head coaching change.
After
So,
what, 20 years, 25 years?
yeah, which is kind of crazy.
Crazy.
Um,
Rip
but
to the
that's not
WCC, by the way.
but that's neither here nor there. Well, St. Mary's is going in house, so I think they'll be okay.
And
Um,
Gonzaga's gone. Your point?
that's a good point. Um,
Gonzaga's moving to the new Pac-12.
yeah, I kind of forgot about that part until you mentioned it
Mhm.
just now. But the Houston Cougar machine is rolling right along. And on the other side with Illinois, what I thought was so impressive about their victory is that VCU only shot 35% from the field. Now, some of that is them just having an off day, but the Balkan boys are too big, too fast,
I
too
think they struggled to deal
powerful.
with the height. I don't think they were built to battle with the positional height that
Yeah.
Illinois has across their guys. When it comes down to it, I mean, they not only have so much size on their front court, but even in their back court, a defender like Kylan Boswell goes a long way to taking out or at least minimizing a lot of performances by opposing guards. And the height that they have in the front court makes it all the more difficult to find any success inside, both with the big men or trying to drive to the basket with guys like Big Z, Zvonimir Ivisic as a shot blocker. They're a tough match for everybody. But guess what? So is Houston, because Houston is the same defense that they've always been. Crazy high pressure, switching everything, athletes all over the floor. But this year they got offense too. They had a 78 in the first round when they didn't really need anything over 60 against Idaho, and they followed that up with 88 against Texas A&M. They have been electric all year long, and with guys like Kingston Flemings continuing to ascend as a true freshman, getting more and more experience. Man, this one is so hard for me to pick because I want. No,
Yeah,
go
so
ahead. I
so
want to
so
hear
so
your
I'll go
thoughts.
so I'll go first. Um I think that if there was a Sweet 16 game where you're like, we could see either one of these teams playing for the national championship, if not hoisting the national championship trophy, it is these two teams. Either one of
Yeah.
them could be national championships. They're both
Kind of
well-rounded.
tough that they have to get matched up in the Sweet 16. This
But
could be a Final Four game.
this is kind of what we were looking at when we made our brackets. Now, granted, yes, I took Penn in the first round, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to course correct and recognize how talented of a team that Illinois is. And I have a few brackets where I have Houston in the Final Four and as my national champion as
Yep,
well. So it's a bit of a coin flip. But with the way that Illinois their calling card is their offense, but the way their defense has been able to step up, the unity that they've been playing with. Even Keaton Wagler has been playing more of a team style of basketball,
sure.
which is kind of rare that you see from him. But now that I think that Brad Underwood has his guys seeing the bigger picture, I think it's all kind of clicking for him. That doesn't mean that Kelvin Sampson isn't going to have his guys ready to go because it is going to be
He always
an
does.
absolute war. But since we gotta pick a team here, I'm going with the Balkan boys. I'm rolling with the
Uh,
Big Ten. I think that they're just going to have a little bit more. Their fundamentals are going to win out. They're going to make one more play, one more pass, one more shot to win this game. Although it would not surprise me at all if Houston won. But I think this is
yeah.
going to come down to the wire.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when it comes down to it, I don't see a way how this game doesn't come down to the wire
Circle
just
this
because of how
game on
good.
your calendars. If you're a
Yep.
college basketball fan, this is like Christmas in March.
And it's a 10:05 p.m. start, which is going to be or 10:05 p.m. Eastern. So
Yeah,
9:05
not
for
all
all
of
you
us are on
Central
Eastern
folk
time around
now.
here. Hey, shut up. You were born and raised a Central folk, all right?
I'm full Eastern now, but the crazy thing about this matchup and this round is I'm against you again.
No, come on,
I am
dude.
but here's
Uh,
the thing. And as much as it's been difficult, I'm not just picking this for the bit. This game and this matchup comes down to one thing for me.
listen,
I
we
have
don't
watched
do that for
Illinois.
the bit. We do
I
not
have
do this for the
no,
bit.
no. This
There's,
is my pick and my pick only. This matchup
yeah,
comes down to one thing in my mind. There has
okay.
been one aspect of games and teams that Illinois has struggled with at times throughout the season, and it is high ball pressure on the perimeter. And that speaks exactly to what Houston wants to do as a defense. When take Illinois against Purdue, for example, they are able to pick you apart when you let them run their offense, get to where they want to get, drive, kick, move the ball. Houston's not going to let you do that. And as much as I know that's not going to just throw Illinois in a tizzy and just, make them shoot 40% from the floor, that puts the ball in Houston's court. And for the first time, I see a Houston offense that can carry you to a win, even if an opposing team's offense still able to put up 75, 80, 80 plus against your team. So I'm going with the Cougars. It feels bad picking against the Big Ten, but I don't want to pick the Big Ten just to pick the Big
Yeah,
Ten.
but
I
you
have to
use your
think about the
brain.
matchups.
Yeah, I completely agree. But that's the thing about these matchups. They're all so tough to where that they could go either way. And
Speaking of tough, the West region.
Arizona and Arkansas, that's a
This one is
fun
another.
one.
This is another one that I circled a lot because as much as I thought that Wisconsin was going to be the second round matchup for Arkansas, I still had Arkansas moving on in that game in a lot of my brackets
Well,
because
you break down both of those teams in Purdue's path to the Final Four, these two teams that you actually do hit. So if you want to see your full-on analysis, you could either watch that video or the millions of shorts that you're pumping out. You've done those, right?
still more to come.
All right, more on the way. But let's recap these games. Arizona controlled most of the game against Utah State, although I got to credit the Aggies for not giving up and fighting back, making it close in the second half, but not close enough to where you ever really got worried for Arizona. They were all done. But the exciting game, high point, all credit to the Pointers up on high because they had us sweating, man. They had
They're
us
the
sweating.
Panthers, by the way.
No, they're the Pointers, obviously.
The High
High
Panther Pointers.
point, point,
High Pants
high
Pointers.
point.
That
Okay,
game was insane. I watched a whole lot of that second half, and High Point never backed down. No matter how many buckets Arkansas hit, they came down
never
firing.
back down, never what?
Never give up,
Never
and
back
they
down,
did
never
not.
what?
I'm not going to
But
continue
Darius
this bit.
Acuff,
That's the thing. Darius Acuff right now is essentially inevitable, but I would be remiss not to mention Rob Martin because a 30
100%.
piece on 11 for 23 from the floor, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 turnovers. Unfortunately, he kept them in this game, and Cameron Fletcher off the bench with 25. I mean, this was an electric fest all around. But I don't know. The question for this Sweet 16 matchup is how do you stop Darius Acuff? No matter what defense you throw at him, he is
That's
just
the
having his way
question.
with everybody. He has 36 in this game. Now, a big part of the reason was he didn't necessarily shoot lights out. He got to the free throw line a lot. He made 11 for 13 from the free throw line. So for Arizona, can you keep him off the free throw line? And can you keep him from shooting over 50% from three on you? Because right now he's essentially like averaging 50% from three or more in this tournament, I'm pretty sure. He's crazy.
So who you taking?
I
Should
hate
I go?
this.
Should I go first again?
No, no, I'll go for it.
Okay. Well, you're on
When
the
it
clock, bud.
I know. When it comes down to it, I think
You got to do it to it.
I don't trust Tommy Lloyd, which is crazy because do I trust Calipari? Not really.
Yeah, that's
But
kind
the
of the
way that
question. Which coach?
the way that this offense looks like, dude, they're averaging 95 and a half points in the tournament so far. 95 and a half points per game.
Yeah, which is even
I
better
thought it
than their
was
regular
crazy that
season
they
mark, which is
averaged 90 for
bonkers.
the regular season.
Yep.
But now they're averaging 95. And it's not like they faced great defenses thus far. This is by far the best defense that they've faced. But they've just got guys that
Well,
can
they
hit
faced
from
well,
anywhere.
they faced a big defense and they faced a scrappy defense.
Yeah.
And they've taken them both down and pretty much had their will scoring and scoring a lot. Um, so right, you're taking the
I'm
Razorbacks.
gonna take the Razorbacks.
Hey,
And for
we
some reason
finally
I feel
agree!
for some reason I feel bad
Yay!
about it, but I'm gonna
I
stick with
don't.
it.
Dude, I
So here's
don't.
I'll explain it a bit.
I don't, man. Blue Pig. I liked Arkansas as a national championship dark horse to begin with.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick with them. I like I like Acuff. I like the team ball that they're playing. Obviously, there's kind of a theme here with me. I like teams that have an identity, that know what they're doing, that stick to their game plan, and they just go at you aggressive all game. And that's Arkansas. Not to say that Arizona isn't a great team because they definitely are, but I got two one seeds going down.
Yeah, and here's the
Maybe a
thing.
third. Who
I,
knows?
I've said this. I've said this whole time. I think the way that you'll be able to beat Arizona in this tournament, if you are a team that can just launch from threes, from three, and if there's any team that can do that, it's Arkansas because it's not just Acuff. It's Malik Thomas who hit 3 for 5 in this game. Even having a stretch big in Trayvon Brazil. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. My apologies. But he was 2 for 4 in this game
Yeah.
from three. So you've got guys that can hit from anywhere. It's not like, oh, just guard one or two guys from the outside, put your best defenders on there, and you've taken them out of their game. There's a reason why they're scoring so much because they can score from everywhere. So that's the main reason why I just feel like I have to ride this Arkansas offense going into the Elite Eight. But that brings us to a very, very intriguing Sweet 16 matchup with my Purdue Boilermakers, as always, represent, and the 11th seed darlings, the Texas Longhorns.
Didn't think
And
they'd get here, baby. From the first four to the
no,
second weekend.
no, because there was the one team, one of the few teams. I think I talked about 9 teams out of this region in Purdue's path to Final Four. This was not one of them.
I remember prepping that video with you, and I was like, "How many teams are you covering?" And you're like, "9." And I'm like, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" Well, you covered BYU.
I did.
You didn't get
Mm,
Texas.
Didn't get Texas. That's my bad. I wasn't aware. I
Well,
wasn't
guess
familiar
what?
with their game.
We can talk about Texas right now. Tim,
We can't.
how did they beat Gonzaga with some homegrown guys and familiar faces.
Yes, realistically, the big thing for them was, massive three-pointer from Cam Heidi down the stretch, which is crazy. As a former Boilermaker, I had texted this to my friend. Cam Heidi has a knack for hitting threes in the last 30 seconds of games. I think you just really need to tell him that it's the end of the game whenever he goes into the game, because he had the three-pointer to tie the game against Houston last year, for Purdue, when they almost pulled that off in the Sweet 16. And then he goes and hits a crazy corner three in this one from the, hilariously enough, exact same corner. He loves that right corner. But
Peter
they
Griffin
just
style.
they look good. I mean, when it comes down to it, they're sort of big three at the moment between Vokatitis, Jordan Pope, and Dalen Swain. Those guys are playing good ball right now, and the way that they beat Gonzaga specifically was they were able to take enough of the other options out of the game where they couldn't beat Graham Ike couldn't beat them alone. It was kind of like the UConn versus Purdue strategy. Just take away everything else, force your one interior big man to drop 40 on us. Well, Graham Ike was only able to drop 25. Gonzaga was only able to get 68 because of it, and it was not enough to beat Texas. The thing with this, though, is that,
And over on the other side, we are not going to recap Purdue and Miami because we have a whole video where we
yes,
already did that. Another shameless plug. If you haven't
exactly.
watched that, you should go watch it because we're not talking about it now. Go over to the next
No.
video. This matchup, Texas, Purdue, Tim, you're taking Purdue. Why?
The reason why is Purdue has the ability to beat them from three in ways that Gonzaga couldn't, and quite frankly, that BYU failed to. Because the thing with BYU is the fact that it was another one of those games where it was AJ DeBonsa and everyone else tried to help. But that's the thing, AJ DeBonsa couldn't hit from three. He was 1 for 7 from three in that game, and they only beat them by a little bit. You've got Fletcher Lawyer, who, by the way, in his last, I want to say it's 6 games, has been shooting 53% from three.
Yeah, that's nuts.
If you get him hitting, if we get CJ Cox being back and healthy is going to be a big question mark surrounding this, because we're going to need, we really need his defense. And if not, then you'll see how Jakari Harris steps up in his absence, similar to, how he was able to in Miami. Another big question mark there. But I think the thing comes down to is Purdue can outscore this team well enough if they hit their threes. That's what it's going to come down to. And I believe in Purdue's ability over the course of the last, 6 game stretch between Big Ten tournament and NCAA tournament play, and the guys that we've got on this roster playing like, again, it is win or go home. Fletcher Lawyer said it at the end of the Miami game. Let it fly.
Let it
We're
rip.
just we're just trying to let it rip. Where it's win or go home. These guys know it. You've got a ton of seniors that do not want to see it end right now. So I believe in the Boilermakers. I believe in our outside shooting to be able to take us home.
Oh, do I do it? Do I do it?
Do you do it? I don't know.
Nah, give me the Boilers. They're too fun. I like how they match up against Texas. Although, I think one aspect that you didn't mention is how are they going to take care of the bigs, Jordan Pope and Modest Vokatitis. Although Purdue has a pair of their bigs in their own in TKR and Oscar Clough, so that's the
Well,
matchup I'm watching.
and the thing for the bigs is that, like, TKR stepped up on the defensive end significantly in this past game. Yes, Malik Renew still got his 16 points, but we talk about the turnovers that he had in that recap. If TKR can continue to just be a presence, he doesn't need to be like a big time shot blocker or a big time defensive stopper. Just make it difficult on these guys. And I trust Clough on the interior. He's been able to battle with guys like Ernest Ude Jr. the way that he battled against Michigan bigs. As if he can stay out of foul trouble, he can absolutely compete with Vokatitis. There's no doubt about that. He is a massive body in the paint. It's really, I think, going to come down to the foul trouble. If Purdue's bigs stay out of foul trouble, I trust in their ability to make that sort of a net neutral matchup. And then on the guard side of the ball, give me Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer any day.
Also, I don't like Sean Miller, former Xavier coach.
Fair enough.
Boo.
Moving to our last region, we've got the Midwest, and you've got the 1 seed Michigan Wolverines against the 4 seed Alabama Crimson Tide. Michigan continues to look great following their Big Ten championship loss to Purdue, posting
Yeah,
games of 101 and 95 in the Big Ten or in the NCAA tournament thus far, and really taking it to St. Louis. quite honestly, kind of the way that I thought they would. Maybe not to the point of beating them by 23, but I thought that they were going to be able to out physical them and force Robbie Avila to try to score from the outside. That's what he tried to do, and Avila couldn't really get it going from the outside. Now, it's an entirely different matchup with the Crimson Tide. Crimson Tide got athletes, and they got guys that can shoot everywhere. And if we have seen a way to beat Michigan is just shoot 43s.
Yeah, you
And you
shoot
want
the
to know what
lights out.
Alabama, and you want to know what Alabama did to Texas Tech? Shot
Yeah,
42
yeah, you
threes.
shot the lights out. Um, yeah, the interesting thing about Bama is they haven't really let the loss of Holloway affect them too much.
No, I give them so much credit.
Their strategy has been just the same. Nate Oates and his squad has dealt with all the adversity in the world, especially in the last
Between
yeah.
Bediako and Aiden Holloway, yeah, it's been a
Yeah, over the course of the
wild
season,
season for them.
it's been a wild ride, and credit to them that they're gonna make it to this point. Um, Michigan is unique. Their size is unique. Lendeborg and Ademara. That is a unique thing that you don't normally see in college basketball. That I'm not sure if Bama is going to be able to deal with it. Although I think if you get Bama, they're so volatile. They shoot 45 threes, and it all depends on how many threes go in. And if a bunch of them go in and they put up 90 points, they can win. But if they're off, they don't. Um, and
I
then you
mean, dude,
mentioned,
they shot 45% from three on 42 attempts.
yeah, that's a
That's
lot.
nasty. That's 19 threes.
Dude, that's like me in pickup, like all the time. But
To be
Michigan
so for
also
real.
put up 95. No, I'm being for real. Y'all can ask around, man. I'm like Larry Bird and to be calling a three.
Get to
Anyway,
your points.
well, Michigan put up 95 and 101 themselves. Listen, they didn't get the Big Ten championship. They're rolling, and I think they're gonna roll right through Bama. I'm gonna pick the Wolverines.
There are two aspects to this game that I see, and it's really it's really I guess one matchup, and it is Michigan's front court against Alabama's I guess team, because it's going to be a battle of who can outscore each other, Michigan's front court on offense or Alabama with their ability to stretch Michigan's bigs outside. But when teams are able to pull a Daimara away from the basket, all of a sudden you mess up some of the strength of Michigan's defense, especially in the interior. So if they're able to pull them away from the basket and all of a sudden, run a bunch of actions and get guys open for three, that falls heavily in Alabama's favor. But I also don't think that Alabama has any real answers on their defensive side for Michigan's front court. All that being said, I'm sticking with the Wolverines. I feel like I've shorted the Big Ten enough in this Sweet 16 with as many matchups as we've had. I think I've picked against them twice.
Yeah,
Um, I
well,
trust.
yeah, you have.
I couldn't pick
You
against the
can't
Big
really
Ten
do it with
in
Iowa
Iowa,
and
Nebraska.
Nebraska. Yeah, you can't really do
um,
that.
but I trust Michigan and their defense to be able to figure this out. They've just got athletes everywhere, and their defense is really good. I think that's going to be enough to throw off Alabama's defense from scoring 90. Now it doesn't mean they won't score 80, but Michigan's offense still has enough firepower and enough versatility to take it to Alabama and win a shootout.
Could be a 92 to 88 game. Why
Could
not?
very well could be.
You know what I hadn't realized is that
What?
Tennessee, this is their fourth Sweet 16 in a row. I had
Yes,
not realized that they've been that successful.
it's been very quietly good for them. And I think the biggest thing has been reason it's been quiet is because they haven't been able to move much farther. They've made it to, I want to say a couple of Elite Eights in that span. Obviously, the one that they lost to Purdue back in 24. But they're here as a 6 seed again against the 2 seed Iowa State. And a big question I would say in this one is for Iowa State, do you get Joshua Jefferson back? I think they can still win this game without Joshua Jefferson because of how good their team is overall. I mean, they still put up 82 against Kentucky after
Yeah,
a bit
man,
of a
I think they're
slow
gonna
start.
regardless. I think the Cyclones will win regardless of whether you have Jefferson back or not. But
But
if you get him back, it'd be a big boost.
the big thing is I think you come
Yeah,
into
I don't
this
even
game
care. I'm just saying
hoping
my prediction right now. I don't
exactly.
know.
I think you hope that is able to come back this game, but if he's not 100%, keep him out until you see how the course of this game is going. If you're on track to win without him, keep him out because you will need him in the next round, no matter who your opponent is, if
It's a
you're
good
able to
point.
make it there. And that kind of does reveal my hand as well. I still have not been super convinced by Tennessee in their first two games. Now they've obviously done enough to make it to a Sweet 16 again. All credit to them. I felt like Virginia kind of beat themselves a little bit more than Tennessee beat them. I feel like they didn't.
Virginia lost to Butler on a neutral court this year. You can't trust them. Can't trust them.
I guess you're right
I
about
will
that one.
mention that game until the season's over. And even
Yes,
next
you
year, I
will.
still may mention that game.
You absolutely will. You will milk that as long as anyone can remember it.
Dude, I need any
Um,
sense of Butler copium.
Another hypothetical win for the Butler Bulldogs.
No, there's nothing hypothetical about that win. They actually beat Virginia. That actually happened this season.
Back to our last matchup
Nothing
here. I want to get through
hypothetical about
this.
that.
Tennessee has done a fair amount to get here, and Jacoby Gillespie looks great. Nate Ament has continued to look pretty solid. But Taman Lipsey, Milan Momcilovic, even guys like Nate Heisey stepping up in Joshua Jefferson's absence, they've just looked really, really solid. And I don't think that Tennessee's going to be able to muster up enough offense to outscore Iowa State in this one. Not to mention the fact that Iowa State is definitely the best defense that Tennessee has faced thus far, arguably probably since I'm not sure who they faced in their conference tournament, but probably, since then, maybe even earlier. So I'm going to go with Iowa State as well.
Hey, man, me too. And we're done. Not a moment too soon. How cool is that?
We did make it to the end here. It's going to be an exciting Sweet 16. I am super excited to see these games, whether it's, of course, Purdue trying to make their way back to the Elite Eight, or so many of these absolutely electric matchups that we have in front of us. But that's all we've got for today. We appreciate all the love and support we've been seeing on the vids lately. Keep commenting, keep subscribing, because we've got so much more content still to come before it's all said and done, including a special Running the Table
What's that?
in-person experience. More to come in the future on that. But if you
Ooh.
want more from us, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, we're out.